So we're now just a few days away from Google's massive smartphone spaffing extravaganza over in New York City. And these Pixel 10 phones have already leaked so much that you'd be forgiven for thinking they were a pensioner's Y-fronts. Among that 2025 smartphone crew is Google's third stab at a bendy blower, the Pixel 10 Pro Fold. We basically know this will launch at the same time as its siblings thanks to those copious leaks, which include official renders as well as a pretty comprehensive set of specs. So here's a lovely wee look at the upcoming Pixel 10 Pro Fold and what to expect ahead of the launch if you're in the market for a flexible phone, all delivered to you by an extremely moist northerner. Tell you what, 30-degree weather is not when you want massive great whopping studio lights beaming right at your bald head. Anyway, jingle me.
Techspert Weekly.
Now, it might seem considerably chonky by 2025 standards, but last year's Pixel 9 Pro Fold was actually considerably slimmer and lighter than Google's first stab at a foldable phone. Although it's not really saying a huge amount, because let's face it, that first Fold was an absolute brick house. But while you might be expecting Google to slim things down even further for this third generation, well, apparently they've decided to do things a wee bit differently. So rather than indulge in Samsung and Honor's recent dick flapping contest over who has the absolute thinnest foldable possible, Google has actually made the Pixel 10 Pro Fold a wee bit fatter than the previous model, assuming of course that all these leaks aren't just a gloopy sack of cock slush. The new Fold certainly looks just as chonky, with a reported 10.8mm thickness when it's all folded up, although that hinge does at least appear to have slimmed down a wee bit for this generation. And of course, one of the benefits of having that larger, chunkier frame is they don't have to sacrifice battery capacity. Predictably, they haven't gone for silicon tech for the battery stuffed inside of the Pixel 10 Pro Fold, but apparently the capacity has increased to 5015 mAh. That's a decent step up from the Pixel 9 Pro Fold and also considerably larger than the 4400 mAh battery that Samsung managed to cram inside of its size 0 chassis for the Z Fold 7. However, the Honor Magic V5 is skinnier than the Google Pixel 10 Pro and yet still boasts a bigger capacity battery. That's thanks to that silicon tech, so it's basically the best of both worlds, like a stein of beer with a couple of Viagra chucked in to counter the brewer's droop. And Google has also reportedly boosted the durability for this generation of Pixel Fold with a proper IP68 water and dust resistant rating, so it's less likely to be cocked up by sand and grit and bits of muck. In that regard, it is an upgrade over the Honor Magic V5 and the Samsung Galaxy Z Fold 7. In all other ways, the Pixel 10 Pro Fold appears to closely resemble the Pixel 9 Pro Fold, from that metal and glass frame to the sizable camera bumps slapped on the arse end. Up front, you've got a slightly bigger and brighter OLED panel, which has grown from 6.3 inches to 6.4. But you got roughly the same 20:9 aspect ratio, ideal for all your everyday phony shenanigans. Yank the phone open and you'll reveal a bright and bold 8-inch panel when you want to multitask like a mofo or geek out with some graphic novels or whatever. And the brains of this year's Pixel Pro Fold should be the same Tensor G5 chipset that Google is cramming inside of all of the Pixel 10 series. And hey, if you happen to love a bit of nerdy spec chat, then get your Kleenex on standby, because that Tensor G5 is a 3nm chip with an ARM Cortex-X4 prime core. You got 5, count 'em, 5 Cortex-A725 performance cores, and a bouncy pair of Cortex-A520 efficiency cores. Woof! And hopefully that'll be a good enough setup to handle all of that violent jiggling in Wuthering Waves, especially if Google slaps in a vapor chamber as expected. Compared with the old Tensor G4 that was stuffed inside of the Pixel 9 Pro Fold, you can expect a more energy efficient setup as it's 3nm rather than 4, so hopefully that'll further enhance the battery life. You can also expect an improvement for general multitasking, so again that's good news if you've got several apps displayed on the screen at once. Although all of the rumours do suggest that Google has stuck with the same Exynos 5400 modem that we found stuffed in the chipset last year. And it looks like Google has also gone with the exact same camera hardware as before, if those Pixel 10 Pro Fold leaks are reliable. So expect another 48MP main shooter, a 10.8MP telephoto snapper with 5x optical zoom, and a 10.5MP ultra-wide angle effort with autofocus. And on the software side, Google has tweaked the Android UI so it plays a bit more nicely with foldable phones for version 16. And most of the rest of the specs are similar to what we already saw on the Pixel 9 Pro Fold, although apparently Google is super hard for that Qi 2 wireless charging shenanigans. So you can expect them to also launch a couple of new Pixel Snap wireless charging stands with all of that magnetical bollocks. But anyway, you can expect to find out the full skinny on the Pixel 10 series, including that Pixel 10 Pro Fold, on August the 20th when Google has its big old event over in New York. And of course, your Uncle Spurt will be there with bells on, mostly because Google has promised there'll be a free unlimited bar. But also, of course, hopefully to elbow my way through crowds of Yanks to have a proper good old fondle with these fresh new Pixel 10 blowers. The Pixel 10 Pro Fold will apparently be on sale here in the UK around October time, so a few weeks behind the rest of the Pixel 10 crowd. But are you tempted to splash out the best part of £2,000 on this new flexible fiend? Definitely let us know what you're thinking down in the comments below. And now it's time for the part of the show that's about as enjoyable as flossing with barbed wire. It's viewer comments.
Viewer comments.
Now I just want you to be here and listen to this song and dance that I have to do.
We'll kick off this week with Etienne Sharp. You read Etienne, who says, with the number of holidays you take, you should change the name of the channel to Judith Chalmers Spurt. I quite fancy myself as the new Judith Chalmers, although back in the day, the guy who I really wanted to be was that Keith Floyd fella. That lucky bastard basically had the best job in the history of jobs. All he did, I swear, was basically just bugger off to a whole bunch of really nice exotic locations and hoy a whole bunch of food and drink down his gullet while someone vaguely waggled a camera in his direction. He didn't even need to edit his own videos or anything, he just slept it off, buggered off somewhere else nice and then did the same again. 2001 MBK Booster says, nice to see you're enjoying your breakfast beer. Well, you know, it's the nourishing start to the day that every growing boy needs. F your Frosties and bollocks to your bran flakes, that's what your Uncle Spurt says. It's a good old liquid breakfast that keeps you regular. Of course, long been debating like what is the best beer to have at breakfast time, because, you know, my constitution can't really handle lagers and other fizzy stuff first thing in the morning. And that's why if I'm at a Wetherspoons at 7 AM in an airport ready to jet off somewhere, I always go for a nice oatmeal stout or something like that. I mean, that's practically breakfast anyway. I mean, it's got oatmeal in it, right? Credez23 says, from an avid fan in Kenya, East Africa, we don't have much phone variety here apart from the usual suspects, Samsung, etc. Would really like to see you recommending shipping shops, or better yet, start your own. I haven't tested any shipping services, sadly, so I can't actually recommend any. But yes, Spurty shipping certainly sounds like a grand idea for an expansion. If I had any kind of like actual workforce or anything, I might look to try and get that started. But as usual, it's just Muggins here doing everything by himself, and even just churning out a handful of poor quality tech videos every week is struggle enough. MPT says, next week, what the f is next week is a jingle that lives rent-free in my head and I sing along every time. Yeah, forget the shipping company, maybe I should just set up a jingle factory instead. $5 for a jingle, governor. The Nez Rookie says, I'd love to see a best battery phone video. I think it would be a close call between the iQOO 13, the OnePlus 13 TRS and the Realme GT7 Pro. Yeah, that's a good shout. I mean, I could absolutely cobble together a best battery life phones based on, you know, the phones that I found have the best real life battery life. You know, I don't have the patience or the inclination to do those. Here's 12 phones just running a friggin' benchmark thing. Which one dies the first? Shenanigans. There's plenty of other people churning out that stuff, that's for sure. Some correspondence here about the Ebo companion robot jobby thing that I reviewed in the previous episodes. Leona Devon says, I got one of these from the original Kickstarter back in 2021 and I still use it to patrol the house. And Jesse Boy says, that Ebo thing looks really cute. I wish I had something like that when I was a kid in the late 80s. Oh yeah, absolutely. An expressive robot that could follow you about and actually have a chat with you as well would have absolutely broken our tiny wee minds back then. What I always wanted was one of those, I think it was from Tommy, whatever they were called, the robots with the grippy hands, which you could actually program so they could like pour you a drink on demand. I mean, what more could you possibly want from a robot butler? And sodden Ebor can't do that. It hasn't even got any hands. But anyway, as well as back in the 80s, I too was a child, and so therefore that whole pouring thing would have been a lot less useful. I obviously wasn't into my whiskies just then. I was always more of a Bacardi Breezer lad. Speaking of drink, I'm going to actually have to drink some water. This is what I've been forced into with this bloody heat. Oh, completely off brand for me. Rapids444 says, I'm trying to figure out what the point of that little bot is besides being cute. And Matthew Haddon says, I'm sure that my 10-month-old grandson would love to play with Ebor, but apart from that, it looks completely pointless, and at 370 quid, oh dear. It's certainly not cheap, and I can see it being quite useful if you want to check up on any relatives who refuse to answer your calls, for instance. You just get this thing to stalk them about, making sure they're not tripping up over the carpet or anything. You know, I guess it's a bit of peace of mind as well when you leave your 2-year-old at home watching RoboCop while you bugger off down the local for a couple of pints. And the last episode I must have also been banging on about Samsung's Galaxy S25 Fan Edition, which is of course set to launch in the next sort of month or two. GJ1714 says, boy, if it's 8 gigs of RAM and 128 gigs of storage and just has a full HD screen, it's going to have some real competitive pricing to be better value than the S25 Plus. Spoiler alert, it absolutely won't. Zaliz says, buy or scrap leftover inventory before the S26. I mean, yeah. I Am Thunderhawk says, what's the glass from? Is it the London Craft Beer Festival? I have absolutely no idea which glass I was using to presumably drink beer from in the previous episode. All I can tell you is that yes, I've basically kept all the London Craft Beer Festival glasses apart from last year's, which I managed to drop and smash on my way home. I think that sums up how much of a good time I had at that one. And then this year's I didn't bother to save either because it was just a crappy little plastic effort. Speaking of beer, lots of chat about the beer festival video which I published over on the Spurt Hall channel. Adrian Woolley says, you have very good taste in beer, Chris. Noticed you drink in Hepworth. Nice. Ex-King and Barnes, and the brewery is just down the road from me. Their organic brew is excellent. Aye, they do pump out some absolutely banging bitters, and I've also got my eye on their Imperial Russian Stout as well, which is another 10% mega bastard. It's going to absolutely ruin me at some point. Aaron Miraglu says, hello, greetings from Turkey. I enjoy watching your videos, but my English isn't very good, so I would like to request Turkish subtitles or dubbing. I mean, you'll have to request that to Google, I'm afraid, because I don't know how to do any of that gubbins. I just leave it all to YouTube to automatically spaff out in the background. Do they not have Turkish on there yet? They've certainly got plenty of other stuff. So as well as English, we've got French, German, Hindi, Indonesian, Italian, Japanese, Polish, Portuguese and Spanish, but yet no Turkish yet. What do I sound like in Hindi, I wonder?
Hello, मैं श्रंक स्पर्ट हूँ और आज हम फिर से Pixel 9 Pro के बारे में बात करने जा रहे हैं.
There you go, that's me if I was born Hindi. I think my favourite is still Italian. Let's face it, I sound about 10 times sexier in Italian.
Ciao. Sono Shrank Spert e oggi parleremo ancora una volta del dovresti prendere questo strepitoso smartphone per Wii finché è così conveniente, o forse aspettare un po'.
I know it's just an AI generated thing, but it sounds like it's about to burst a blood vessel trying to keep up with me in Italian there. And last up for this week, the Butcher OT says, Android or iOS? Well, that, my good friend, is an entirely extra video, and one most likely filled with an awful lot of one-sided slinging. I am planning something along those lines, however, so stay tuned, ding my bell, etc. Now, massive thank you to everyone who commented in the previous episode. Please do type your comments down below and we'll try and get through as many of those as possible next week. And speaking of next week,
Next week, what the f is next week?
So next week, off I piss to America, good old New York, for Google's Pixels made by Google, the Pixel launch event thing. So it's so friggin' hot, my brains do actually feel like they're liquefying and gushing out of my nostrils. But anyway, please do let me know what Pixel-shaped shenanigans you're most interested in seeing. I'm going to try and shoot as much video as possible while I'm out there, really make the most of it. So yes, which Pixel 10 thing has you throbbing the hardest? And because I'll be away all next week, that does unfortunately mean no Techspert Weekly next week, but I am planning on shooting some sort of beery, vloggy type shenanigans while I'm out there to go live on the Spurt Hall YouTube channel. So check that out instead if you want some more of my semi-soused ramblings for whatever reason. In the meantime, please do subscribe and ding that notifications bell for more of this shower of shit. Massive thanks for sticking with me, and make sure you have yourselves a bloody wonderful weekend. Cheers everybody, love you!